yesterday and landed right like that
Oh,
on the ladder.
oh,
My chest is like,
it hurts.
yeah.
I bet.
I don't think anything's broken, but
Yeah, bruise and bone bruises aren't nice.
yeah. Ta-da.
And if you wanted, I brought the agendas that
Yeah,
Nice.
great.
along, in case you got those. You're welcome.
We're probably good with just moving ahead. Do you want to start with election of officers? I mean, or we don't have any agenda additions or
No,
reordering, do we?
we don't. I'm assuming Mark knows who we are.
Yes, I do.
Hello. Hello again.
Hello again.
Well, I definitely want to introduce myself, Mark, because I know we haven't interacted a whole
Sure.
lot, and I do have some relevant industry network that I think could be helpful for the project. So
Okay.
I currently work for a company that does battery storage stuff,
Mhm.
mostly focused on residential.
Yep.
I, in the past, worked for a company that did grid scale demand response, so didn't specifically work on the kind of battery storage that
Mhm.
Topsom's considering, but in the like grid scale program, like I kind of understand what they're gonna be doing with the battery and the
Yeah.
benefits that they'll be getting. And then I also went to Vermont Law School for a graduate degree, and I'm kind of familiar with the concept of energy. They have an energy law clinic.
Mhm.
And so, and I just have a really deep network. If we ever
good.
wanted to leverage, just put it out there.
I think we will.
Resources, anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure that I was able to let you know about that.
Oh, that's great.
So
Did you do energy law? Is that or?
my graduate degree is in environmental law with a focus in energy law.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I have no relevant experience, so,
Just
but
enthusiasm.
I'll show up.
It does.
I think my most relevant experience is I've got this affinity, and I don't know, I think I've stumbled on it by accident. It's the homepage of the ISO New England website.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And it's become a hobby to try to check it at different days and temperatures and like, I think there was a day in December of 23, after we had a real bad storm.
Mm.
And they have the price, I don't know exactly what the measurement of the price is, but they have New England covered all green, and it's maybe like $40 for whatever the relevant thing is. And at that point, it was in red, and it was 400 and something for the same amount of electricity. And so it's kind of interesting to look and see how the grid's performing, and it also shows you any second the mix of where our energy is coming from.
Oh, interesting.
And
Wow, this sounds like fun.
actually, if you
Yeah,
want,
there's
I'll
an
pull
app.
it up.
Yes, there's a mobile app for it too.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
The energy mix and so it's interesting. There are several energy markets in the regional system operator, the ISO New England. And so there's usually more an advanced market, and then a day ahead, and then a real time. So Mark, you probably were seeing the real time pricing,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
people that are buying and selling energy to meet the supply and the demand in that given. I don't know what the granularity is of the real time. But the day ahead is usually 24 hours in advance.
Yeah.
And so the ISO is trying to procure enough energy supply ahead of time in these more advanced years ahead markets, and then they're kind of shoring up the because you can't predict exactly the day-to-day fluctuations. They're having to buy it in real time, and that's where the battery storage really comes into play. Is the battery can probably store energy when it's cheap, sell it back when it's more expensive. The battery owner makes some money and the whole grid benefits. It lowers the cost for everyone that's having to buy this energy.
Yeah, I had asked that question, how do you guys make money anyway? Well, it's off that differential thing, buy
Yes.
cheap, sell high.
Right.
So this is at the moment. And then it shows every day, they show what they're expecting for demand and then what the actual demand is.
Oh,
So
wow.
like today, for the most part, they were right on, a little bit, part of the were using less than they thought.
Yeah.
And then a
Okay.
big chunk of our power is from the nuclear power plants that are still left, at least on the average day. And,
Sure.
and you notice how much oil do you see here? Nothing. But I've got some saved ones from some of these days when it was 400 and something,
Yeah,
when they put the former plant like in Cousins Island
Yeah.
on,
right.
to start using that. And so you'll see oil that's here. You'll see natural gas is actually a little higher than it normally is today.
Yeah.
But they can ramp those up. And it also seems like the hydro, they kind of use like battery storage in some ways.
Yeah.
Is because they kind of hold that until they have a period when they need more power, and then you'll see that jump up. But it's really interesting. It's something you know a lot more about than I do, but it's interesting as a layperson to kind of watch this and see where our power is coming from. And then
Oh, that's cool.
actually looks like today, none of it is from outside New England.
Yeah, because you see, this is New York's independent system operator, so we can actually import energy from them. That must be New Brunswick.
Yep.
Yep.
And then Highgate, I don't know where that.
I think that's like northern New York, or maybe some
or
Canadian
Vermont.
stuff too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, so there's these interconnections to other systems that we can trade power back and forth. It's really, it's a cool thing once you start digging in on how all this works.
CMP's had us up at different points, what they call Municipal Day. And they show us their command center in Augusta.
Oh, cool.
And it's really interesting that it's actually, I have a son that went to Maine Maritime, which makes it more interesting in some ways because a lot of the Maine Maritime graduates work there. But they start in a room where they basically take calls for outages and then they dispatch crews and whatever. Then you move on to that room into their room that is their distribution room. And it's probably the size of this whole floor. And they've got this massive computer screen or a series of them in that room. And they've got these Maine Maritime graduates are working at desks and they basically keeping the grid balanced because power has to be roughly, you're using about the same amount as you're generating. It's which is kind of interesting that you have to keep that up or the grid crashes. And so they can pull up, and they would do it when we were up there. They say, hey, there's a group from Topsham here. And they pull up our line that's out by the Topsham Fair Mall and the train station that can see what's going on. What they're working on doing, because I've got a son that works for on Target Utility Construction and they're a CMP subcontractor. And one of the jobs his crew is doing is to put more and more switches on the poles. So their hope is that by automating the system more, if we get a tree down that would cause an outage in a certain section of town, they can use these switches remotely to reroute the electricity. And then they can have a little more time to fix it and people get their power back on faster. So in this room, they're doing that stuff. Then they've got another room that's their transmission room. I guess that's you get promoted to that. So you kind of go and that's the room that's got the, like these connections and they're taking the power in from New Brunswick or getting it out. But oh, here we go, net imports, that's what they, so today we're not really using much of anything from the other places, but there were some days this summer or a lot of days this summer, we were about 20% of our power was coming from outside of New England as these imports and stuff. So I think, I don't know if I've got see if I've got it on here. I've got a few slides that I captured of, if I can find the right PowerPoint. That's our bridge on the Tedford, or our work on the Tedford Road. For our new culvert. Yeah, I think it's on a different computer, but sometime or maybe the next meeting if you're interested, I'll bring you some of the screenshots I've got of some of those days when the power grid was really under stress, and it's interesting to compare them to this.
I have to add this to my monitoring.
Yeah.
sites.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
So back to the meeting. Sorry about the diversion.
No, that's helpful.
Right on subject.
My background is the natural world.
Mhm.
I can identify a wildflower for you really quick.
Should we do election
I think we should.
of officers?
Who wants to be it?
I volunteered to be secretary.
That's usually the one no one wants, so that's that's the hardest one.
Oh, she's a good proofreader. Yeah,
And
Why don't you be co-chairs? Just as a thought.
what do you think, Nick?
sure, I would.
How many
If you would.
officers are there supposed to be?
Whatever you wanna have.
Okay.
I mean,
But
yeah, we
that
don't
work-
have a lot of
that work-
choices here.
Well, I think that seemed to work very well
Yeah.
with you and Yvette, so.
Well, except that Yvette pretty much ran the show, but that's fine. So we can couple your competence with.
Yeah, I'm pretty I'm a planner, I'm type A, I can think ahead about agendas and things like that, so
Mhm.
I'm happy to co-chair.
So
All right, our plan.
All in favor?
I think we have to have a motion.
It was unanimous.
I will warn you, I'm really good at Robert's rules, so we'll. let
So what
this
do we
slide.
do next?
So what do we do next?
We need a motion,
We
right?
need a motion.
I move that Jackie be instated as our secretary and that Nick and I are instated as our co-chairs.
I second the motion. Any
All in
discussion?
favor? Oh, any discussion?
Any
Sorry.
discussion? This is where lots of groups go wrong. They forget that the discussion comes after the motion,
Yeah.
not before. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
All right, we got it.
Properly done.
So. Type A, you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
So
the whole-
before, I think we had a Google Drive that was a vet's personal drive and we were using that for all the files. Sky had mentioned shifting over to the town system, so
Okay.
whatever you want us to use for sharing documents and things like that, we're happy to adopt.
Let me talk to Sky, because I'm not that much of a Google Drive expert. So, I mean, I think if you wanted to set up a Google account in the name of Topsham Energy Committee, and that you guys had the passwords to or something, that would be fine. You know, if that's easier for you, then, which it might be, I think, rather than try to do it through the Topsham planning account or something.
Okay, I
Oh,
know
so we
that
don't
Sky-
we don't need to have it on the town website.
No, we're just,
Town.
the important stuff, we can put, with the agenda, or we can add to the town website or something.
Okay, yeah, we're happy to do whatever is easiest on your end. I think Sky said she had copied all the files into your old system, so you have everything that was produced before.
Yep.
But just in terms of how we want to work moving forward, I'm very familiar with Google. I feel like you're not a big fan of
I'm
Google.
not a big fan, but I can access it and I can download it, so.
So anyway, I'm flexible.
I could get by.
I don't really know how it works though, if we can create a non-personal. I think someone has to create it from their personal Google account, but then just share it with everyone.
Right, and that I can't do.
Oh, you don't think you
I
can
don't
do
have.
a organization Google
I don't
account?
think so.
I don't know, yeah. But, I mean, nothing is
Do you know what the other
against the rules
committees
or
do?
whatever.
CPIC has a Google Drive that CPIC kind of runs, and they put stuff on and things. A lot of the other committees, I don't think have something, that just brings stuff to meetings or trade it or something.
Okay,
And CPIC is,
A Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, so.
thank you.
So do you want to have the Google Drive or you want?
well,
Or if you'd rather, if I ask Sky,
why don't we
that
start with
procedure,
that,
okay.
see if she recommends something, or knows of another avenue, and then we'll do Google as our plan B.
okay, so let me ask, I'll talk to Sky and we'll sort that out.
So what did you mean with standing agenda?
Yeah, I don't know if we wanted to set out what our standing agenda would be for each week? Like, do we want to just do kind of traditional new business or old business, new business, or I don't know how we want to structure? Or just ad hoc every time of what I assume the public will continue to be invited, or they can access it through the town website, so.
Yep.
Having public comment on there isn't, just in case someone joins.
Yeah, it's always good to have a public comment section.
I think it's good to have a format that we follow, because it's easy then to plug everything in.
So what is that? format?
Usually it's, as you said, it would be,
Approved
usually it's
minutes?
the minute, right,
Approve
the
the
public
minutes.
comment comes first, right? Is that right?
It's up to you.
Oh, okay. Actually, I think it-
Sometimes it's better to have it first, because if someone doesn't want to get off the chest,
Yeah.
then maybe if it's really ornery, they leave. It's a good thing.
So there would be that, then the minutes.
There's a guy that would come to town meeting, and when we were doing the drive-in ones during COVID, he'd come there, get up, rant about taxes, and then squeal his tires and leave.
He was already ready to, in the car.
Yeah.
How sweet it is.
So basically, like public comment, minutes, old business, I'll double check all this, but.
I was trying to look up one of them.
And then I think before we had staff updates.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we did.
Staff update. And actually, I think we had that even before we had the old business. But it can go in any order.
Here's an agenda. Introductions. I don't know why that was May 27 introductions. Invitation for public comment, approval of minutes, staff updates. I guess we would be reaching out to you to find out, just so we can add stuff. If there was a particular update. Action items.
Oh, is that instead of new business, or, which makes perfect sense.
Oh, I guess, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
But we should have something for old business, because, a lot
Yeah.
of times you don't finish.
Especially
Something.
be in terms of updating our own work.
Yeah,
That would be essentially, because we'll be working on something over a period of
Right.
time.
so that would be probably before new business. On this one, there was a reminders.
Reminders are good.
Town meeting, whatever, and then second invitation for public
Right.
comment was at the end. And then adjourn.
All right, sounds good enough. We can always adjust as we go.
Right. Hey, look at that. Staff updates.
All right,
We're ready for you.
so, first a little history on the project, and then why I think it might be exciting and something that would be good for the town to have happen. Is and stop me if you've heard some of this before, you don't want to hear it again. October of 24, we had some people approach us from this Mission Clean Energy. And they came in kind of secretive in some ways. And they said, we'd like to try to get a battery storage plant or a farm permitted for the Bisson farm. What's the process? And we kind of laid it out and told them that it doesn't fit under our current zoning. So the first step is you want to come to the select board and get them interested enough that direct staff to work on it to see if we can change things. And they said, okay. And they said, when you want to come? And they're like, oh, we'll get back to you. And then they ended up changing people and stuff. And then they showed some more interest in April, and then finally nailed down they were going to come in July after a couple of things. But when we talked to the lady who came back in October of 24, we said, how much do you think this is worth? And she said, oh, about $300 million. So I I almost started salivating at the meeting.
I You had to really go check
Because
yourself.
when I multiply $300 million by our tax rate, it would be over $3 million a year in taxes. And I have this problem that I wake up in the middle of the night, trying to put all kinds of pieces together. And one of the pieces I'm trying to put together is we've had a lot of interest in the community that would like to have a community center. But there's not a lot of interest in a significant tax increase. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make this happen without a tax increase, or at least a significant one. And I thought, gosh, this might be the thing that helps fund the community center, and might even still be money left for tax relief if it's $3 million a year. So I was kind of excited about it and hoping they'd come back. They mentioned to us at the time, they were also talking to Durham. So we were kind of monitoring what Durham was doing, and Durham had started the process of changing things because they'd gone to Durham. So I don't know if Durham was their first choice at that point or what. And they put things through with something called contract zoning. So they weren't writing a lot of the specifics necessarily into their ordinance, but they're gonna have the ability to make an agreement with the developer to get what they want and things. So
Contract zoning is just when you say, okay, we need to do this project, so now let's build a little thing around that and then.
build an agreement with
An
that person,
agreement.
yeah, so you don't necessarily have to have as much in advance, you have to have the authority to do things,
Yeah.
but a lot of the details you can kind of work out for that
Yeah.
particular deal.
Okay.
I won't get you too excited about contract zoning, because what we've done since
You
July,
decided against it, right?
always, yeah, we went to the planning board, because ultimately they really need to be happy and endorse whatever we come up with, and they were not interested in doing contract zoning. So we're not gonna spend too much time down that road, but that's what Durham had done.
Yeah.
When they were planning to come back in July, I said, it was mentioned to me at the time that you were talking to Durham too. Have you, and it looks like so far they're changing zoning. Is that your first choice, or would you do both? And they said, no, we'd do both. But they also sounds like they're running into some environmental permitting issues with wetlands there. So
Yeah.
they claimed that right now they prefer Bissett Farm to that. But then the people that I talked to last October, they said that the one that's hired them is a retirement fund of either Kuwait or Dubai or something. So it's a Middle Eastern country that was, and their job is to basically collect the permits, this company. So it's almost like the permits are an investment, and then they might not be the actual one to operate things. So I think, I don't know if you remember, Nick, I actually asked them that question in July when they were at the meeting. And they said that, well, they may, but they actually don't run any right now. Also, interestingly, is they haven't talked to me again since July, because they were kind of disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
But what has happened since July is Andy Bisson and his brother came in shortly after the meeting, and they said, just want to let you know how important this is to us. They said, we really want to try to keep this farm operational, but electricity costs are skyrocketing, seed costs are skyrocketing, and we have to give some hope kind of to the next generation that we can do this viably. He said Mission Clean Energy, they wanted to buy the piece of land that the BSS would go on. And we told them no, that we'd lease it for 20 years, but it's that important to us to keep the farm together that we don't want to sell the land. But he sees this as being very compatible with their farming operation. And because at first we thought, is this maybe a retirement plan that you want to sell the farm? And this is, no, we want to try to keep the farm going and do everything we can. But go ahead.
So we're still talking 2024.
No, this conversation happened in July. This was with Andy. Yeah, so after the meeting.
Oh, okay, right.
But
there was quite a gap.
Yeah. So what I basically, from that, I take this as being, not only is this a way to help make solar or wind power more dependable and viable, it's also an economic development, in essence, way of trying to save the Bisson farm, which is beloved. And you guys may remember a few years ago that when they were talking about closing the meat store there, and there was community uprising, how can you do that to us? And people like, what can we do to help the farm and stuff? And so this is certainly something we can do to help the farm. So I think that's another,
It's a landmark.
another reason for doing this. So from the town's perspective, I can think of, I guess, at least 3 or 4 reasons for doing this. A, it helps solar and wind energy. B, it helps the Bisson Farm. C, it might help fund our community center. The other talk that I've had with them is I'm trying to figure out, because they said something about a TIF. So what a TIF is, a tax increment financing district, is you have a particular area of town that rather than the money just being used like other tax dollars, if you have an approved purpose, and you have to have that, then the money can be used for certain dedicated things that the legislature has said are beneficial. And if you do that with it, then it doesn't get counted as part of our assessment for school valuation purposes and for county valuation purposes. So to step away from this one for a minute, the TIF that's on our November ballot, talking about the affordable housing, I was very skeptical of it at first, because I didn't think we were getting enough out of it, because it's 180 units. 2/3 of the units are gonna be market rate, so the rents could be $2,500, maybe even $3,000 a month. Probably won't be much less than 22, you can almost guarantee. And then they were offering us a third of the units, so 51, that would be up to 120% of area median income. But even that's a rent that's probably gonna be in the ballpark at $2,000 or something.
Yes.
So, and for that, what they wanted was the town would get 40% of the tax revenue. They'd get 60% rebated to the developer. They're estimating the building's gonna be worth 40 million. So it's 500,000 a year in taxes. So we'd get 200, they'd get 300. In
A year.
a year, yeah. So some people took the position of, hey, right now we're getting 10,000 for that property, so it's 190,000 more the town's getting, it wouldn't have gotten. But what that doesn't take into account is we're gonna be that much closer to having to add police officers, firefighters, other services. And someone said, well, how do you know there's gonna need any police officers or fire, whatever? I said, I can tell you what it costs to provide municipal services to that building. It's 500,000 a year, because that's what our tax rate is, because you're not paying for the police officers to come to your house, you're paying for them to be able to come to your house.
Right.
And the same thing for the fire department, everything else, in the school district. And so I initially thought, I don't know if that's really worth it. Town's getting enough out of this at that 120%. But I wanted to give them a fair shake. So when our Bowdoin interns come in, I said, hey, here's a project if you're interested, is let's calculate all this out and try to figure out what exactly the benefit would be. And we happen to have a couple this time that really liked economics and stuff and cared about affordable housing. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Interesting results were our share of the county taxes is basically solely based on Topsham's valuation. So they did the calculations of Topsham's valuation with this extra 40 million versus Topsham's valuation without. And then for the school district, it's a combination of valuation and number of students. But they did those calculations too. It came out to be that we would either be paying more share of SAD 75, more share of Saginaw County, and getting less revenue sharing from the state to the tune of about $280,000 if we didn't do the TIF. So if we don't do the TIF, we're getting about $220,000 of tax dollars that we could spend towards our general needs. And we're spending, and about 280 of it is going to school, county, or it's less revenue sharing that we get. If we do the TIF, we're gonna be getting the 200 versus the 220. Now, all this will go up over the years because it's a tax, unfortunately, taxes usually go up. So as they go up, the town will be more and the developer share will be more, but it'll still be 60-40. So in essence, for this, if it had been in existence this year, $20,000 of giving up of tax revenue, and we got them to sweeten the pot a little on the units. So they're giving us 10 of the units at 80% of AMI, which is downstairs is a meeting of the Topsham Housing Authority, and John Hodge is running that. But John Hodge, you guys probably know, has been doing housing for 30 years or more. And he's probably the foremost expert in the area. And he says, what I really need is, he calls it the missing middle, and it's the 80 to 90% of AMI.
Yeah.
Because our new project out on Tedford Road that'll get dedicated on Thursday is great. And it's up to 60% of AMI. But if you've got, say, 2 people working in the household, they're probably gonna be making too much for that. But they're not gonna make it enough for this 120% or certainly market rate.
Yeah.
So 10 units is like, okay, that's, you're giving us something significant there. So for 20,000 a year, we're getting 10 units of, I think that's my phone and I'm ignoring
Okay.
it. But there's 10 units at 80% of AMI and 51 units that are up to 120.
Yeah.
So how does TIF relates to the battery storage farm? Is apparently, and you may know more about this than I do, but one went in Gorham, and the one that went in Gorham, the town was assuming, they were drooling like I was and thinking they're gonna be getting all kinds of money. And the developer was thinking they're gonna classify this as, or the batteries, as personal property that are qualified for the business equipment tax exemption, which means the developer doesn't pay anything on the batteries. And the state has to reimburse Gorham at 1/2 the value or 1/2 the taxes it would have had.
Okay.
So the developer is getting a pretty good deal. Gorham's only getting half the money they thought, and the state now is gonna get a big bill it didn't expect. And then as you get closer to the either completion or fruition, I think everyone realized they were on different pages. So some Gorham legislators put in a bill to say that these facilities were not eligible for the business equipment tax exemption. Then there was a lot of lobbying, and if you read the letters and the legislative testimony, the developers said, hey, we hadn't expected this, we had blah, blah, blah. And ended up like a compromise was, as mostly is done in legislation, compromise was reached. And if you had your interconnection agreement with the ISO New England, I think it was as of January 1st of 2024 or something or other, then you are eligible for the business equipment tax exemption. If you didn't, you're not eligible for it.
Okay.
So what I take from that is that this, unless we do a TIF for them, this company is going to be expected to pay personal property tax on the batteries, or possibly real, depending on how attached they are to the land, real property. So that's, I guess, helps us as far as tax revenue perspective. The other thing you may remember at the meeting was the one of the selling points in the PowerPoint was they said that we would get $7 million of tax revenue over the life of they wanted a TIF and would get 7 million. And that was kind of like, oh, wait a minute, that's not the golden egg I was expecting. Because 3 million a year is a heck of a lot different than 7 million over the course. And problems for my community center vision are currently, it's not an approved use of TIF money, it's for a recreation center. You can use it for trails and things, but you can't use it for a building. They started to move a little bit in that direction recently. For a while, you couldn't use it at all for a town hall. Then they changed the wording to say that you could use it for a municipal administrative office. Our town attorney that does a lot of work on TIFs said he got his hand spanked by someone up at Augusta when they were reviewing an application, because they said something about a town hall and a public comment that they were looking at. And they're like, this isn't a town hall, it's a municipal administrative office. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between the two.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, without some legislation change, we couldn't necessarily use it as a TIF purpose to fund the community center. So those pieces haven't connected quite yet.
Is there, do you see that as a possibility?
The TIF?
The legislation change?
Yeah, I think if, I've talked some to a guy named Dan Stevenson, that's the head of the MRA, who used to be really involved in the state on writing these. And he's volunteered to possibly help write the language. I talked to Matt Eddy at the Mid-Coast Council of Governments, and he said that's something they'd be willing to work with us on, helping with the lobbying. So the problem we have a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit, is this is the second year of the legislative session. And they're like all the new bills in the first. So, but it's something, you know, worth looking at and things.
Mhm.
I
But you
think the
can't
thing
count
that,
on it.
yeah, can't count on it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was just a little discouraged in the presentation at the meeting is they were again evasive on the value. If you remember, at first, she wouldn't give us a number.
Yeah.
And then one of the people on Zoom said, when I said I was told 300 million, oh yeah, about that. And then she threw out that they wanted, I don't think they really understand the TIFs, and I don't think they really understand the taxation of what's going on in Gorham. But Andy told me that before these people, Andy Bisson, before these people had approached him, someone else had about trying to do something. So I look at our efforts here more as trying to get the ordinance changes done so this is possible. And then, so even if it turns out this isn't this particular group,
Right.
it's such a valuable location because it's next to the power lines. Someone's gonna, you know, someone will come forward.
Yeah.
So, but if we can't get the ordinance changed, then no one's gonna come forward or something. And then in a minute, I'll turn it over to you guys for thoughts and comments, but where I see the pushback coming, will be the fear of fire.
Yeah.
So I think if you Google battery storage plants, you see fires in California or other places, and the fact, and even the NFPA is very clear that if these get going, you cannot put it out. So Jeff, our assistant town manager, was the deputy fire chief in Brunswick for a lot of years, and we ended up buying a copy at the fire department of the NFPA came out with their kind of fire prevention guidelines or for battery storage farms. We have a copy of that, and there's, so we've got kind of a guideline, but I think we're gonna have like people in the neighborhoods there nearby are gonna be really worried about fire. And I don't know if you know anything about this, but I think because I did too much searching for battery storage things over my phone in the past few months. On my feed, I've been getting something that has 2 weeks on sodium ion batteries
Yeah, I saw
rather
that.
than lithium.
Yeah.
And supposedly they don't have the fire risks and they can help desalinize water too or something or other. But so maybe this new technology that is gonna be even safer than the lithium ion or something.
Are they doing a sodium
Bursting the
ion
flames on it
battery up
by itself, I'm not sure why it
in
would be
BC
less.
or something like that? Somewhere down east, there's one that's actually under construction.
I know one of the former
One of the mills.
paper mills, but I
Yeah.
think that one is an iron.
Oh, it's
um,
iron, yeah.
Something,
It's
has
not
something to do with, I guess, the rusting process or
Right.
reversing back
Yeah,
and forth.
rusts and
Yeah.
unrusts and rust, yeah.
So that definitely isn't, at least
So
what
that's not
these
the
guys
sodium.
proposed.
Yeah.
But this sounds like sodium's kind of cutting edge future, so maybe the sodium will replace lithium on these things. So,
Yeah, and I didn't get the feeling from their presentation that they were committing even 1% on what kind of battery this was
No.
gonna be or anything like that. So I think they're ready to pivot because people are freaking out about lithium fires.
And I think one of the reasons they weren't committing too much is, I really think this group, despite what was said, and I know all this is being recorded, but so be it. I don't get the sense they're gonna be the ones running this in the long run.
Mhm.
So-
They're gonna sell it at the first opportunity.
And their profit's gonna be much as they can hold our tax revenue down versus as much they can do with a property or something.
Right.
So I think our goal in crafting the ordinances things is to try to protect the town and making sure we've got something safe that people can support.
Yeah.
And that our agreements are gonna be durable, so that they aren't just with the initial. permit.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say, is it seems like you're right on that. Right, what we can do right now is we can draft an ordinance that envisions this type of project, protects the town, considers what happens at the end of the thing. They're gonna have to take it away and return
Right.
the land to the way that it was before, like all of those things. And then maybe after that, then it's like, what do we think is the best financial outcome for the town using the tools at hand?
Yep.
Is it a tip? Is it something else? Like, what are the learnings you can take away? Because it seems like we would be in a good, it would be good for us to be educated on that,
Mhm.
so that whoever developer it ends up being, we're ready and we kind of know what to look for and
Yep.
what to suggest. And also how we wanna use the money too, if that's dependent on the mechanism. So that all makes sense to me.
You know, I was surprised to see how many companies there are that are doing this.
Right,
That was,
and maybe that's why they haven't been following up, is because they're more excited about other opportunities or easier ones they have or something. But again, I'm not so much focused in my mind on this particular company, it's more on making the location, you know,
Right.
viable.
right,
One thing I guess to think about is, like, they could do this today if they wanted to do it at, say, the Grimmel site, because in the industrial zone town,
okay,
this is, which maybe is not a good thing, you know, because we don't have our battery storage ordinance if we want to have something
Right.
special in place.
right,
But for the zoning part of it, in the industrial part of town, they could. I don't think we want to, then, well, I'm sure we don't want to take our agricultural area and turn it into industrial zones.
no,
You know, we do have certain areas of town, it's called the mobile home park overlay, that traditionally has been a place you could do mobile home parks. I mean, with some of the law changes, I'm not so sure we could stop them anywhere else if we wanted to at this point, as long as you can do housing, but, and at this point, in many ways, like Topsham mobile home park is expanding, and that's probably our most affordable housing, is the mobile home park, I think. But maybe would have, say, an overlay near the utility lines that would be the battery storage overlay or something,
Yeah.
where an area where you could do those. That also might be an easier sell, rather than saying you could do the use anywhere in the R3 zone or the R2 zone, whatever, to say that it's limited to the areas next to, near closer to the power lines or something.
Well, I think that's the only place that's feasible to build it anyway.
Exactly,
You have to be
yeah.
able to, you know, to hook right in.
I think you're probably right. So, but it might be
It's an
easier,
interesting idea, though.
it might be easier to sell if we just limit it to that area where it's the most
Right.
feasible area too, or
Right.
something, right?
Right. So that's an overlay.
So that's kind of the big view of it, but happy to answer questions or discuss it more.
Yeah, so in terms of drafting the ordinance and then getting it adopted, what is the process involved with all of that? And what's the timeline you all are working on?
Ideally, I'd like to have something ready for this next Maytown meeting. Which means for parts of it that are part of the zoning code, always has to go through the planning board to get their take on it. And they just keep life a little more complicated. We're getting close to finishing, we think maybe the recode. So we might be trying to plug this into that lifetime, you know, in February or something or other. But if we wanted to try to pull this up in the Maytown meeting, at least for the parts, we pretty much need to have things going to public hearings and planning board and stuff by February, I'd say. So,
And how many public hearings are required?
only required to have one on before the planning board, and then the meeting warrant gets another public hearing that comes in April, but that's after it's kind of developed, so. But we also, something like this that could be controversial, it might be worth, like, this committee having one even before it goes to the planning board, or giving it to the planning board early enough in January, so there's time for a couple public hearings if need be or something.
Yeah, I mean, I had thought about just having a general sort of education on why batteries, you know, why would you do this? Why would anybody do this? Because I generally, you know, I've talked to some people about it, and you can tell they just, you know, foggiest idea why do you even bother to do it. You know, so some understanding of the, you know, the effect that it has on the grid and the options it gives you to run the grid, I would think would be interesting to people. In built support. Doesn't address fire, obviously. And there's some very strong voices, you know, I mean, during the school bus, you know, meetings, you know, the electric school bus, there was a lot of really strong feelings about, you know, school buses burning up and stuff, which I don't even know, you know, if that's true or false or once in a million, who knows?
They claim, I can't remember who was doing the presentation on TV, you know, I mean, sorry, that we had it in July, or if it was an earlier meeting. But one of their fire experts seemed to claim that kind of they're moving towards design that pretty much they had, I guess, a fire in one of their units at some facility, and actually didn't even know they had the fire, because it stayed in the container and contained the cell. I guess the NFPA thing requires there be 10 feet separation, because the idea is, at least this could have like 300 of these units, is that just one would go up, not catch the whole thing, which I guess maybe there hasn't been enough separation at some of these plants that have gone up more severely. And local, we might choose to make that even bigger. And instead of 10 feet, it's 25 feet between the units or something or other, from what some of the fire people I was talking to.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to, you'd have to really substantiate. I get the feeling they were saying these are self-contained units that we can, keep it inside the, essentially kind of like a shipping container that's fireproof. How would we know?
So our challenge is to try to find a way to validate that, I guess.
Right, yeah, how would we even know?
Right.
Yeah, so where do you see us helping out, and what would be most helpful for us to start working on?
And this may be where your connections help, this is what our interns did at one point this summer, towards the end of the summer. And it's more kind of a very brief, and I'm not expecting to read all this tonight, but you can take it as homework. It's kind of a real general thing, you probably know more than this, even says, but trying to find some towns that have good ordinances that people like. And because I'm a starting point.
Yeah.
Because of the fact Durham's relies so much on contract zoning, I don't think we want to use Durham's as our starting point, because I think we would probably end up with a combination of two things. We probably have something very specific to battery storage. Like maybe there's gonna be things in there for annual inspections, or maybe there's fees they pay for the town that cover annual inspections to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Maybe, and then how do they deal with decommissioning? How do you make sure that the money's actually gonna be there when the time comes?
Right.
And so I think that would be helpful, is if you guys help research what's the
Find out what.
quote unquote best ordinances, so we can kind of start with those as a drawing board.
And have you all reached out to these other towns at all?
I don't think anyone's reached out in person, no. So right now, it's just the interns, what they found on the internet, basically.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And feel free to volunteer. So if you have ideas that you think, oh, here's what I could be of use to you or help, but I think just with your connections, even just, hey, does anyone have a good battery storage ordinance?
And say, look, I'm helping out my town with this, and looking for anything at all, honestly, just to kind of build up our repertoire of our repository of information. And I imagine a lot of the things we're caring about so far will come up in that process. So yeah, I can definitely get started on just kind of reaching out to my network and asking for resources.
Because ideally, if we could, for our next meeting, maybe have some towns samples that are good ones, and then we as a group could kind of go through and say, okay, this looks like worth working on more or not, or and then we could kind of woodshed one or something.
Well, these ordinances would be online, would they?
That's where the interns were finding it and stuff.
Okay.
But I think a lot of towns probably don't have them, unless you're contemplated at one of these plants, or then you probably have to go down this road. So.
Yeah, it's a new thing. And so how or when would we interface with the planning board on this? I mean, would there be some kind of a workshop, or, how do you?
Probably what I would do,
rolling?
if we are at the next meeting collecting ordinances, probably one aspect of them will be, I expect, because I'm not sure we necessarily want to have everything in the zoning code. Probably there'll be pieces of the zoning code that say, here's where you can do this, and here's some standards, or maybe something in the zoning code to say you also have to get your permit under the Town of Topsham battery storage code or something. But I think the battery storage thing would probably be a separate ordinance from the planning board,
Mhm.
the planning stuff. So once we have something ready to go to them, and then, in fact, I may ask Sky or Josh to come to this next meeting
Mhm.
so that we can all be working together and stuff. Or once we have something ready to the planning board, we just ask Sky and Josh to bring it to them and stuff.
Okay,
Cool, I'm excited. This is cool stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, regardless of whether this one goes through, you know, seems like there's quite a lot of momentum in this direction. And Bisson's happens to be a nice convergence of
Yeah,
power lines and,
Yeah.
you know, the right kind of power lines and stuff, so. I mean, I think it's a huge thing to, you know, to play also, you know, is, you know, preserving the Bisson farm,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That local agriculture going.
yeah. No, I think there's all kinds of reasons. I think the only thing is if we can find a way to address the fire concern,
Right.
one way or the other.
Right.
So,
And I actually live half a mile from where it is.
okay.
I'm in the neighborhood. So I also really care that it's safe.
Yep.
I am excited about the project because I believe in it, but I'm also like, I live literally right there. So I kind of want to make sure it's good all around.
absolutely.
It's important to me too.
You're the perfect person to have working on this.
Apparently I was meant to move there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow,
I'm gonna have fun writing these minutes.
yeah, I'll bet.
If this is of help to you, one thing that we've told other committee secretaries is, especially because we've got the recordings,
Right.
don't feel like you need to go blow by blow.
No, I don't,
Um,
but I have a definite, I've been secretary for many organizations, and I have a definite approach where basically, what did we decide?
Yeah, no, that's good.
There was discussion, several
Perfect,
groups brought
yeah.
up.
We've had some committees where people knock themselves out writing all the blow by blow, and you can now use kind of AI to even do the blow by blow.
Yeah.
But it's
It's not, I
It's not
think
that
it's
not
helpful.
needed. No, it really
That's
isn't.
It's not that
No.
helpful.
No.
Although once in a while, it is good to track what people were saying, because the same issues will come up again.
Yeah.
And so it's good to keep an eye, you know, have some bit there. There was much discussion about the fire,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
So that's all I've got for my update.
Good update.
Yeah,
All right, so, okay, we have, this is an hour, is this an hour and a half technically?
Whatever you want.
we have ended earlier, but as I recall, but generally speaking, yeah.
Did we want to talk about educational sessions and getting started on that?
Right, listen, I was just checking that. Well, I think Nick is right. I think, you know, especially if we're working on this and beginning to understand it more, that keeping the townspeople aware and updated and providing some kind of workshop is a really good idea. There are so many, my background is education, so that's where I'm at. I think there are many things that we could provide workshops on. We've talked about that somewhat. But I think this should perhaps be our first real focus with, I mean, I would like, if you go back to the climate action plan, one of the top items, like was in the top 20, was people are concerned about invasive plants. And that would be an easy do. I've been trained by the I forget what the New England IPAIN, that's what it's called. So that's an area of expertise for me. Well, I won't say expertise.
Did you know the Conservation Committee's having a invasive plant removal at the Cannons
No.
Park in sometime in the next month? So it's on a
Right.
Saturday,
Well,
they get the date picked, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. So perhaps that's a place where we could coordinate and maybe have, they'll have this workshop.
Mhm.
We're actually removing plants,
Yeah.
maybe in the spring, plan on having.
And that might be good to work with them on that.
Yes, that's what
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's what I
Yeah.
mean, to work with them. I mean, no point in reinventing the wheel or going in different directions. Especially when it's just three of us. So,
Well, we are gonna be reaching out and. looking
yes, we
for
are, well,
people.
as I mentioned, have you met, Chuck Farrell?
I have.
Yes, well, he had applied to join here and then found he had a whole bunch of other commitments.
Well, he was on even, he had too many committee
Yeah,
things to
Right.
even qualify.
right,
It was one part of it.
was one part of it, and, but some of that has dropped off, so he's
Mm-hmm.
thinking seriously about
Okay.
applying
That's
again,
good.
so. And he's, very knowledgeable.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, so I think, anything to do with, batteries or energy storage, at this point, I think, it would make sense to kind of hit the ground running.
Right,
Whatever the heck that means, but, we'd have to have a date, probably use the library, but maybe we could find a date,
Mhm.
for the Don Russell Run or something like that. I could reach out to this guy that I've been talking to at Revision, who's their battery guy.
yeah,
So, but I mean, it sounds like you've got people
Yeah, I mean, is it,
also.
are we looking, ideally it would be like an in-person guest speaker kind of a thing, or we could zoom in somebody to,
We don't have to do Zoom. I think it's better to do things in person if we can.
mhm,
Um,
I would
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I do think in person is better.
I like it
But
better.
I wouldn't mind if a Zoom capability was built into that.
So if we did it downstairs, because we sometimes do this during, what as you saw it, in the select board
Yes,
meeting,
right,
we could have it both. So
Yeah.
if you've got someone in person, and we can also have someone up on the screen and have dialogue
Exactly.
back and forth.
yeah,
And the beautiful thing is we can record it, and then it's
Yeah.
available for
Yeah,
right,
future viewing.
right, because, if you educate the 30 people who show up, that's great, but it's a lot more people out there.
And we've had a fair amount of people on this tip that have said, how can I learn more about it? So we'll
Yeah.
go to this town meeting and this one, watch that, and we've got a page on the website with some info, and so we could do the similar thing with this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the question would be, it really sounds like this thing is like, it's a little bit of pie in the sky. This particular battery energy
Yeah.
storage project. So do we go all in on, I don't think we want to jump the gun, and say, oh, we got this great project that's happening in Topsham. or
No, I don't
something
think
like
we
that.
do.
We
No.
want to just go, general education about how the grid works and how,
Yeah.
batteries
Exactly,
are gonna be,
Exactly.
part of the future
Right,
changes in the grid.
yeah, and we want you to
Whatnot.
know about it, so there will be fewer questions when a project really comes in.
Yeah.
and if you waited, because once December comes, it's almost like, holiday stuff. If you waited till January, by then we'll have done some of the groundwork of
Right.
the research for the ordinance, which would
Yeah.
maybe make them better informed of, here's the kind of stuff we want to talk about at the presentation.
Mhm.
Right, exactly, exactly. I wouldn't do anything starting now, between now and Christmas. You kidding?
Yeah, so maybe for next meeting, I'll reach out to my network, see if I can drum up, ordinance stuff. It
Okay.
sounded like you had already started doing some research maybe as well.
Yep.
We'll plan to review what we come up with, and then maybe, I don't know if you two wanna maybe come up with your questions that, like, put on your town person hat, what
Right.
questions do you have
Yeah.
about a battery project like this? And that can kind of help us create
Mhm.
our agenda for
Yeah.
our first educational session that we would aim to do right
Yeah.
after the holidays.
In your, when you research out, also see if they know anything about sodium ion, if it's
Yeah.
safer, if it is gonna be the coming edge, because maybe we write our ordinance and say it has to be sodium ion.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so-
yeah,
Yeah.
specific technologies, all those things. It's a great point.
Yeah, I like that. It's hard to bank on, but if we were gonna have trouble, it's hard to bank on okay, they say the sodium ion is gonna be the new it or whatever. On the other hand, if we're gonna have a lot of trouble selling lithium,
Yeah, it's at least worth investigating.
Yeah, right.
just depends.
Yeah, or if there's different, depending on the technology, maybe different things have to be true. with
Right,
the
yeah.
project, right? That's something for us to be aware of.
Yeah.
Mm,
Maybe the sodium ion can't get to that scale yet or something.
Yeah,
But-
right. I know there's some stuff, I happened to see sodium ion just today when I was
Now
looking.
that we've all talked about it, all our cell phones are gonna be picking up sodium
Yeah.
ion.
So,
It's listening.
yeah.
Yeah,
So in terms of these towns, you think that the interns did get information from those towns?
What they got is what you see.
Okay.
Publicly available.
Yeah.
Right,
So I would hesitate, in fact, I would guarantee this isn't an exhaustive list of every town that would want to consider. I think-
right. Should-
yeah.
should-
No, Yvette had figured out a bunch of different
Had
towns.
Okay.
That were actually doing stuff, so we can
Alright.
find out what she found out there.
So would it be, will your networks be telling you what towns have it, or will they, in other words, should I, for example, contact some of these towns and get their actual ordinances?
That would be helpful.
Yeah. I just don't want to
Yeah, no, so I can reach out, I like that division, I can reach out to my network and I'll say we wanna write an ordinance.
Yeah.
But I'll probably keep it pretty broad in terms of would love example projects that you're aware of, towns that these have been gone into, and then maybe we look at the ordinance side of
Sure.
things. But
Okay,
also I'll probably frame it a little more broadly, like, what should we be thinking about? Like, what
Yeah.
do we need to be concerned about if we value safety and the economic benefit coming to the town? And we want the project to be able, these types of projects to be able to be here, how do we balance all those, what do we need to be
Right.
thinking about?
Yeah. that's great.
So I'll keep it pretty broad, but I'll make sure I highlight our first order of business is writing an ordinance.
Yeah.
Keep
Okay.
it on that.
Cool.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mark.
Mhm.
I got very confused about what the rules are for us communicating
Yep.
outside of the meeting. Is it, as we do our research, is it okay for us to share what we've learned?
What I would do is share the documents. and
Okay.
things, But save the discussions of
Yeah.
how should we, where
Okay.
should we go for Topsham or something.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Makes sense to me.
I like to follow the rules.
No, that's good.
Now, my husband was on the planning board for Bethel for 9 years, so I'm aware of some of these issues.
Because the idea is that we want, if the public wants to be able to partake or at least watch,
Yes.
we want them to be able to have that opportunity.
Right.
Whereas if, I mean, maybe if they FOIA'd all our emails, but I hate email FOIAs, because they take too much time. Then they could get it other ways, but it's, yeah, if we save the discussions for the meeting, but share the documents. then that's
Okay,
fine.
great.
There's a history of the Energy Committee hanging out at Flight Tech, talking about this, that, or the other thing, but not really business.
Yep.
Still okay?
Yeah, if you're there for social things, if you're social and common interests, no issue.
Yeah.
But if it's,
They're
hey.
not pertaining
Yeah, exactly.
specifically
If it
to-
starts pertaining what should be on the agenda,
Yeah.
then it becomes like the Lewiston City Council at the bar that they were doing. So, Did
Okay.
you hear about that? It was-
No, I don't know. It sounds good, though.
It was a year or so ago that there was some stuff on that made it even the news, that it seemed kind of odd that agenda items would come up at the Lewiston City Council and they were like, very little discussion, and like everyone already knew what they were voting. And then there was
Oh.
allegations that they'd been, like a majority had been meeting separately and kind of deciding what they wanted to do, and then we just come to the meeting and vote and stuff. So,
Yes.
The decision should only happen in the public meeting.
exactly. Or, I mean, not just decisions, but discussions leading up to the
Yeah,
decision.
Yeah.
right. Got it. Thank you. Very helpful.
Got it.
think it's clear to me.
Good. Well, I appreciate you guys willing to dive in. When you guys said that you wanted this to be part of your charge, I'm like, perfect, that would be great.
Right.
It's very cool stuff.
Yeah, it was like, God, this is made to order, you know? How'd that happen? It's great. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
So our
Anything
next
else?
meeting we're second Tuesdays, third Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
So that's
what's that make?
November 18th.
Okay, so it's not too late in November. Yep.
Great.
We will plug you in for that.
Okay. Invitation to public comment.
Actually, I should check and make sure there's still, we're the only ones here. Let's see. I've hidden my bar here. No, we're still at, whoops. Back to sharing screens again. Our town clerk is retiring.
Really?
So she's gonna retire December 12th. So she's gonna get through the next election, and then she's also our GA director. So she wanted to make sure she could do the Thanksgiving baskets, something she
Yeah.
normally does. And
Wow.
but so we're gonna, what flashed up was the job description, working on that.
Right.
And
It's always something.
Oh, it's hard with, how long has she been the?
she's worked for the town for about 30 years.
Yeah.
And she's been clerk since Ruth retired, so it's probably about at least 10 to 15, somewhere there. So.
Not easy to replace somebody with that background, that knowledge.
Right.
A lot of
Okay,
stuff
Jack.
that doesn't get written down is up there.
All right, well, I'm gonna stop the recording if the meeting's
Okay.
done.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.